What obvious thing did you recently realize? Story 1. My grandson just figured out that I am his mother's mother. He just can't understand why I tell him we have to ask his mom to do some things. Why can't I just tell his mom we're going to do something? I am her mom, therefore her boss. My nephew still doesn't understand that his uncle is my brother, and his mom is my sister. He'll go back and forth on it constantly, but uncle is mom's brother. Yes, and just like how you have a sister, uncle and I also share a sister, your mom. Additionally, my niece used to gently grab my mom's arm anytime I called her mom and would go, "No, auntie, that's my grandma." Yes, I know, but she is still my mother. That's mommy's mom. She's my grandma, not yours. Honey, that is because she is my mother. Your mom and I share a mother. She is mommy's mom, not yours. Oh, you dear thing. That's not how it works. They're lucky they're cute. My mom's parents divorced like a decade before I was born. Consequently, they never went anywhere that the other would be. They had 6 kids together and everyone was really close. It was totally normal to me that Christmas Eve was at his house and Christmas Day was at hers. The guest lists were identical, except for the hosts. No one had ever explained anyone's relationship to me, so I never gave it much thought. Anyway, I was 8 years old, in the backseat of my grandpa's Buick, when he mentioned that he used to take Granny to the roller skating rink every Saturday. I shot straight up to put my face right next to his, drew the biggest gasp I've ever heard and yelled, "You know my granny?" He laughed until he had tears in his eyes and had to pull over. Looking back, it was kind of hilarious that it never occurred to me, but I knew a lot of people who'd never been in the same room as my granny and didn't know her. Why would I assume that grandpa was any different? I mean, it may seem silly, but it makes sense that young kids don't understand how relationships can be different for different people. Kids can only be expected to see things from their own point of view. It's cute though. Story 2. About a decade ago, I bought a Logitech Wave keyboard and mouse combo. Absolutely loved them. Used them both until they wore completely out, which took a very long time. Used some other stuff for a while and recently decided to replace them with another Wave set. They were exactly the same except for one small thing. The scroll wheel on the mouse worked differently. It spun freely. Rather than doing the soft ratcheting that I was used to, it wasn't a huge deal. In fact, scrolling through places like Reddit was much easier. I could just spin it and let it fly, but it sucked for other things that required precision, like swapping weapons in video games. I've just putting up with it for like a month, and just today I realized that the button below the scroll wheel isn't just a middle mouse button. I switched the scroll wheel from soft click to free spin modes. I had no idea, and it made my whole day. I had one for a while. Boyfriend and I would take turns with it. 2 gaming laptops, used it for both since we never had a time where we would use it all at the same time. It was a constant fight between us because he liked the free scroll and I liked the clicky scroll feel. It was a mild inconvenience for both of us that we, of course, got over very quickly, but it was so funny having a back and forth, "Stop changing the wheel setting" every time it was used. What the heck? No idea how many years I've used a Logitech mouse. I've had several for 15 years. 20 years? Have they always had that button, or did you just put one on my mouse? I've never paid attention to it. It's like it's never been there before. Surely they went from click wheel to free wheel around the same time they went wireless. Feels like 20 years ago. I love it when people find out new things from each other on these posts. Story 3. Growing up, my grandparents religiously had a 3:00 p.m. Pepsi time, like tea time, I guess, but with Pepsi. Every time we were over there, it happened. We all enjoyed a crisp, fizzy, cold Pepsi. At 43 years old, I was telling that story this week when I suddenly realized theirs were most likely spiked. I learned the reason that Sunday was my grandma's favorite day of the week. As a kid, I always thought it was because she went to church and got to dress up nice and sang some songs. As an adult, I realized it was her favorite day because after lunch is when everyone would take a nap and she and grandpa could have alone time. My grandpa always had a lowball glass of water with him when I was growing up. My cousins and I thought it was so weird how Poppy put olives in his water. Of course, years later I realized it was gin and tonic. Well, they were hiding that info for a reason. It wasn't appropriate for young ears. It's just funny that it took that long to look back and make the connections. Story 4. That boxer shorts are the style of shorts that boxers wear. This whole thread is making me feel amazingly stupid. I think I always assumed they were called that because they were shaped more like a box than briefs are. Now I have an image of a boxer dog in boxing shorts and boxing gloves trying to wrap presents. He's not doing very well with those gloves on. So I didn't make this connection at all. I never thought about it once. I like the image of the dog though. Story 5. The turn your head part of turn your head and cough is so that you don't cough on the doctor. Was probably mid-30s before I figured that out. Always assumed it flexed something somewhere that helped him check whatever he's checking for. I imagine some time ago when they started doing the procedure, a couple of doctors were probably sitting around a lunch table and one doctor turned to another one not eating and said, "Hey Bill, why aren't you eating today? Are you on a diet or something?" "Nah man, just not feeling too good today. Kinda sick to my stomach with all the guys coughing in my face." "What guys?" "Well, I've been doing hernia checks all morning and the guys cough in your face." "You don't tell them to turn their head first?" "Oh, I learned this the embarrassing way when I was in my late 20s. The doctor didn't say turn my head, so I coughed right on top of his bald head, his 3 little remaining hairs, and they just fluttered in the breeze. He paused for a second and probably had the same thought I did, so that's why they say turn your head. Well, that's incredibly uncomfortable. What should they do? Look in each other's eye? I'm just saying. Story 6. That Bluey's parents' jobs are at the airport, drug sniffing, and an archaeologist digging up bones because they're dogs. There's a funny story in someone's Instagram short. Don't recall the account name. It's a mom my wife follows who talks about gentle parenting. She's talking about how often we forget that little kids often incorrectly assume things or miss stuff that's obvious to us because they don't know better. The story goes that the parents told the kids they're going to Chili's for dinner as a treat. Kids get super excited all day looking forward to going to Chili's. That evening they get there and the kids lose their minds in a tantrum because they had assumed going to Chili's meant going to have dinner at Bluey's house. Joe Brum, the showrunner, based the characters on his family, and his brother is an archaeologist. After an absurd number of episodes, I realized Bandit is called Bandit because he has a black mask pattern over both eyes. And Bandit's older brother Radley works on an oil rig. He's digging for oil. I'm laughing at the dog references. Drug sniffing, archaeology, digging for oil. That's creative. Story 7. Driving through South Dakota with my family, and I was so amazed by the vast fields of livestock. I turned to my husband and asked him how long it must take for the farmer to round up all the cows each night and get them into the barns. My husband laughed so hard. Apparently cows don't sleep in barns at night. It depends on the animals, the facility, and how cold it gets in the winter. On the dairy ranch I work, the cows came inside to sleep in the winter and slept wherever they wanted in the summer. But the late-term pregnant ones tended to get herded inside at night all year just to be safe. Some cows do. Depends on the type of milking parlor or whether or not they're beef or dairy cows. In the warmer months, free-stall milking cows sleep out in the pasture. In the winter, they sleep in barns where it's warm. When outside, the farmer still has to rustle them all up inside, but the majority of cows usually line themselves up and fight to get inside anyway, so there isn't really that much of a problem herding them in. Tie stalls are inside all year round unless they're dry, maternity leave for a few months. Then they're outside or in their own separate barn and are not milked. Beef cattle are usually outside year-round because they're thicker, have shaggier coats, and hardier than dairy cattle. They are often given the choice to sleep inside or outside and can come and go as they please. I have never learned so much about cows. Maybe the conclusion should be changed to not all cows sleep in barns at night. Story 8. Now that I'm an adult, I don't need to keep buying my shoes a little too big. Do yourself a huge favor and go to a shoe store that measures feet and actually fits shoes. Most people are wearing the wrong size or width. Shoes that are fit correctly can save you so much trouble later on. It's actually super beneficial to have shoes that are half a size bigger than what you measure at on the Brannick device. The reason behind this is if your toes are at the very end of your shoe, you can cause problems like hammer toes from your toes smacking against the end of your shoe as you walk. If you prefer this, by all means go ahead, but there are true health benefits to having space. We usually recommend the length of your thumb's fingernail. If I'm wearing uncomfortable shoes, it ruins my whole day. I can't focus on anything else. If they're too big, they can rub sores on your feet. Story 9. That I had an earbud tip caught in my ear for like 4 years. I thought it was something else, like scar tissue. The end of a Q-tip came off in my ear recently, and I pushed it in further while trying to get it out with tweezers. I ended up having to go to the ER after 2 nurse friends tried to get it out and couldn't. It took 30 seconds for them to get it out at the ER, after waiting 5 hours. It was $1,200. I can't imagine having something in my ear for more than a day. I needed that out ASAP. Me too. Had a physical exam. The doctor was checking out my ears for excess wax, saw something that made him pause, ask me questions about my hearing, then grab some tools. I couldn't see what he was doing and had no hearing issues to alert me, but he had a couple of young nurses looking on as he removed it. I guess it was the first time any of them had seen that happen, but better that than something alive. Nevertheless, I haven't worn studs to bed since. How? I'm speechless. Story 10. That the phrase bottom of the hour means 30 minutes past the hour because the hand is at the bottom of the clock. Someone please explain of to me regarding time. 15 of 6. I thought meant 6:15 because it is 15 minutes of the hour 6. But nope, it means 15 till 6. I was late for a thing. Well, now I'm interested. In Philly, and while I have heard time being expressed this way, it's more often expressed using to or till. But where does of come from? One person suggested it's used like 10 shy of 6. I also found where someone says there's an older way to say that it lacks 5 minutes of 10. That is, you're 5 minutes short of 10 o'clock. Then that got shortened in everyday use. The answer to what time is it became it's 5 minutes of 10. I always heard bottom of the hour as half past. I guess I made the connection between the phrase and the time I knew they were referring to. The of is understandably confusing. I know of people who tend to get confused by a quarter after with 25 minutes after. That could make you late, too. Story 11. Eminem calls himself Eminem because his name is Marshall Mathers. He was also required to spell it out prior to a record deal so he didn't get sued by M&Ms. Why is Eminem called Slim Shady? He said, I was sitting on the toilet and a lot of good material came out of that. This name popped into my head. I was kind of skinny and I thought maybe it should be something slim. And then for some reason Slim Shady popped into my mind and I just thought of 20 things to rhyme with it. I laughed when I first noticed this. It's a good pun. Story 12. Pipe cleaners aren't just for arts and crafts, they're also for cleaning pipes. I'm 35 and oh so ashamed of myself. When I was a kid, I always wondered why they called them pipe cleaners because the only pipes I'd ever seen were way bigger than them, household drain pipes, etc., and thought it was stupid to make them so small. I was in my 30s when I found out they were for tobacco pipes. I remember buying a pipe once around 20 years ago and the tobacconist placing a package of pipe cleaners on the counter with everything I was buying and saying that I'd need them. She probably enjoyed the look of dumbass learn something on my face as I eyeballed the pipe cleaners, then the pipe, and did the math for the first time ever. My dad used to smoke a pipe, so I did know this one. I get that people wouldn't get it. I don't think pipes are all that common anymore. Story 13. I always thought it was so sad that Plankton was served holographic food. As an adult who now has kids who watch SpongeBob, I realized Plankton eat by photosynthesis. So Plankton was photosynthesizing the holographic meatloaf. Also, in episodes where it shows Plankton as a child, he has the same voice, not a baby voice. It's because he's a one-celled organism and therefore does not change or mature. My kid pointed this out to me. Fun fact, the reason it has so many bits of actual marine biology is because the creator of the show, Steven Hillenburg, was also a marine biologist. You know the scene where he rips the crown off of Kevin? Yeah, that's where a sea cucumber has its genitalia. I didn't know about Kevin the sea cucumber's crown. No wonder he shakes when that happens. There are a lot of cool marine references, like when SpongeBob said that he can filter feed or that sponges reproduce by budding. Story 14. That when a cat comes running up to me when I'm out for a walk, they are seeing me with the same excitement and novelty as I'm seeing them. That realization really made my day. My sister is a cat whisperer. They will avoid me and go straight for her. I suspect it's due to vibes. When I see a cat, I react as a dog might. I'm ecstatic to see one. My voice goes all high-pitched and I say, "Hi! Oh, so cute!" My sister reacts with cat vibes. She doesn't care. She barely acknowledges them. To a cat, that is the height of polite behavior. They recognize a kindred spirit in her. So if you want unfamiliar cats to like you more, stop visibly caring about them. Exude chill cat vibes and then they'll like you. Sadly, I can't do it. I love cats too much. My wife and I were walking in our neighborhood one day when this cat came running up to us. It was so sweet and we pet him. Then we'd see him regularly. Then one day he followed us back to our house and hung out in the backyard. Over the next few weeks, he was just always there. We were not feeding him. Now 6 years later, he sleeps on my chest every night. We had several conversations with his owners, and they were sad to give him up, but glad he made us happy. We have several cats, one of which we adopted off the street as a stray. You do have to be a bit standoffish with them. You have to let them come to you as they want. Then there are other types of cats who you basically can't get rid of. Story 15. That birds don't get electrocuted on power lines because they have hollow bones like my parents said. They don't get electrocuted because they aren't grounded. I am a master electrician. It was a shocking revelation. Although electricity wants to go to ground, if a bird was touching ground and a wire, the electrons would travel through the bird. However, the reason birds are not electrocuted is because electrons prefer to travel the path of least resistance. So what has less resistance, the small piece of wire length between the bird's feet or the body of the bird, up one leg, through the body, then down the other leg? Now, if the legs were spread out, the resistance of the bird's body wouldn't change, but the resistance of the wire between its legs would increase, increasing the likelihood of electrons going through the bird's body. This is why they recommend when lightning strikes, it's best to keep your feet together or stand on one foot, because if your feet are separated, electrons prefer to go through your water-filled body than the dirty ground. Lastly, the reason electrons move is due to voltage differences, so you could explain the same situation in terms of voltage as well. Also of interest, most poles in the USA are wooden, which is non-conductive. The factor is voltage potential. When a bird goes phase to phase, manages to ground itself on the transformer or any other means of changing potential to ground, then there is a hazard. When a bird typically sits on a single wire, it becomes one with the potential of the voltage on that power source. So it is essentially a continuation of the power line as far as the electrons see it. There is zero resistance between the bird and the electrons flowing through the power line. Resistance is infinite to ground, meaning there is not a path to ground. Amperage is typically what will kill, aside from arc flash. It takes 6 milliamps to stop a human heart, which is truly so very small. If pretty much any electrical appliance grounds you through your heart while utilizing voltage under load, you will likely die. Amperage is a direct factor of voltage times resistance. If resistance is infinite, then amperage no longer becomes a part of the equation. Once the bird grounds itself, then the voltage discharges to the earth and the resistance suddenly is no longer zero. The higher the resistance, the higher the amperage it takes to clear the fault, thus vaporizing the bird. I still can't believe I used to think the only reason a bird didn't get electrocuted in this case is because their bones were hollow. LMAO. I just never thought it through until I had to explain it in class one night. Wow, I didn't expect a physics lesson. I thought birds sat on wires because it kept them warm. Evidently that has some truth. From what I gather from this discussion, they don't get electrocuted because they're too little for it. Story 16. I spend too much time choosing to be negative when I could really be happy. After a vacation, I had a major attitude adjustment and applied it to school in the town I visited. Suddenly, debt doesn't depress me because I'm accumulating it for reasons I know are worth it. In the past few weeks, I've journaled mostly optimistic things, and today I realized I had spent over half of the journal talking myself into a deeper hole. I can't unwrite it now, but that just makes me value the pages I have left so much more. I don't want my life to be a journal full of sad thoughts. I want to be happy. Today was an oddly good day at work, and all it took was some reinforcement from my boss and coworkers, which they gave me because I've been trying to make all my interactions positive, making a little more effort to be relaxed and less worried. I've stopped thinking that being professional and having that pretense will get me anywhere, so I'm dropping some of the uptight facade and just rolling with things. So I'm not solving every issue before it happens, so I asked the wrong people a question, so I forgot to follow up on something. So what? Still getting things done for others. I'm too old to stress out the way I've always done. Honestly, my creative outlet involves writing music. I've been working on originals for years now, and my favorites so far have been political. You're allowed to be livid at a state of the world that you were born in. We live in a socioeconomic dystopia wherein the bad guys are all ruling together to divide humanity. You have a right to express your thoughts, and even more so, a need, even if it's going at a punching bag with a politician's face on it. I get headaches sometimes too, and in the morning, I just can't scroll through Reddit. Too many times have I woken up in a good mood, then lost it within seconds of opening this app. Nowadays, I can actually feel my heart begin to pump harder the moment I scroll across awful news. Here's the thing, there will always be bad news. What do we have control over? Let's start with the peace of mind we occasionally find. Don't waste your good mood and your energy absorbing information that harms you. What do you like to read and watch? I'm not even sure what I like. Lately, I've been scrolling through my YouTube subs and it's all just criticisms of people and companies. Try looking for content that makes you feel happy. I agree about looking for positive spins and distancing yourself from the negative sides of social media, but I don't want to ignore that depression is a real thing and treatment may be necessary. Story 17. Not me, but my favorite one that I saw someone in my network post was them realizing that fluid ounce on a container was not Florida Oz. They were confused why when they moved to Georgia that Georgia stores were selling things in Florida ounces. That is an adult. I was well into my 40s before I realized there was a difference in measuring volume in ounces versus weight in ounces. I always just assumed 8 ounces of something was a cup of whatever it was and never understood why they recommended getting a food scale if you're counting calories. So when I'd be doing Weight Watchers or whatever, I just had cups of whatever food it was, regardless of the weight. That's like the person who asked what a Florida ceiling was in that No Stupid Questions post. Floor to ceiling, for windows and curtains. Such a versatile word. I've heard of a Florida room, but not a Florida ceiling or Florida ounces. There's a reason for that. The other two don't exist. Story 18. That you can preheat the shower before getting in. I used to just stand in the shower, turn on the water, and quickly press myself against the far wall to avoid the cold. Only took me 20 plus years and moving in with my partner to figure out there was a better way. You, sir, honestly are truly a work of nature. I had a friend who thought the same. We were chatting casually and he happens to mention the worst bit about a shower is waiting for the water to go from cold to warm. I just stared at him dumbfounded. He said, "What? You know you can just turn the water on before you get in, right?" There was absolute silence, gears turning in his head visibly. A wash of every kind of emotion ran across his face. Anger, confusion, disappointment, joy, all of it. Are you joking? I turn that on before I even get undressed. I've seen this revelation on Reddit posts before, and I shake my head every time. Why suffer through cold water? Story 19. Human resources doesn't care for you. They're not your friend. Human resources doesn't really mean resources for humans. It means that humans, you, are literally the resources. The Human Resources Department is the department in charge of the human resources at the disposal of the company. Any resources for humans functions that are performed by the department always serve the company's interest more than yours. For example, helping you deal with sexual harassment, which could cause problems for the company. Virtually no one ever seems to figure this out. The companies certainly aren't offering corrections. There are some companies out there where HR, in fact, is there for you first, but most of us will never work for them. Yup, I realized this real fast when I told them I'd just been diagnosed with ADHD and needed to discuss going for an occupational health assessment. After doing that and passing HR, the assessor's report discussing reasonable adjustments, I was asked to go back and tell them I didn't need the adjustments after all. I went back, told the assessor that's exactly why I was there, and she said I'm not changing my professional opinion just because they can't be bothered to make the adjustments, and gave me the same assessment. From that point on, I was constantly being jumped by members of HR asking for a quick/friendly chat in 5 minutes, where I was told all sorts of things like, "So as you know, your performance has been suffering over the past couple of years," until I pointed out that all of my saved performance reviews since starting at the company 8 years ago had been singing my praises. Then I'd be asked for a meeting, specifically without my chaperone, who was a mate who'd offered his services because he knew how terrible I was at formulating reasonable arguments in the moment, and since it was now a disability I was legally entitled to one, which I would always deny. Then they offered me money to leave the company, an amount that sounded nice until my mate pointed out that it only amounted to my statutory pay with £100 on top. That's all bad enough without me pointing out that all these quick chats that would be about significantly impactful and important topics started immediately after letting my HR department know that I had ADHD, and that one of my specific issues was impulsivity. HR is there to protect the company from the employee, not the employee from the company. These are some sad facts, not just that HR is on the company's side, but that diagnoses like ADHD can be held against you. Story 20. I had bad sciatica for years, saw doctors and specialists, nothing helped. Then my pain suddenly stopped the same week I replaced my favorite boots. My boots were the problem the whole time. Reminds me of my friend's mom. She had chronic foot pain and was just putting up with it. My friend took her to a specialist finally, and that doctor immediately recognized she was wearing shoes one size too small. After my 2 pregnancies back to back, 16 months apart, my feet had grown a full size bigger. Not just bigger around, but longer in length, but it took me 8 full years to realize this. I just thought that being a mom meant my feet were supposed to hurt all the time. Pain from bad shoes can travel and manifest elsewhere, like in the hips and back. So wearing better shoes that actually fit me has improved my life immensely. More feet problems, this time shoes that are too small, also painful, also debilitating. Story 21. that there was a typo on my email in my resume. Somehow it went unnoticed for 6+ months. I've been getting emails for a dude that's not me for years, like legit emails from work conferences and when they bring their car in for service. I know their name and essentially where they live and could probably steal parts of their identity. Not sure how it's been happening for this long. I guess they've been giving out the wrong email address forever and never realized it. Like, I could see if they used a fake email for spam that just happened to be mine, but these are emails with important information they probably need. There was a famous Bitcoin guy who is probably a billionaire by now, was interviewed by CNN back in 2013 or 2014 for a documentary. He would frequently post on the Bitcoin subreddit. I just happened to check his LinkedIn once when he was going on some rant in that subreddit and noticed he described himself as an entrepreneur or some other horrible misspelling of the word, and it had been like that for at least months as far as I could tell. My comment got deleted by the mods, and then about an hour later I checked again and he's fixed it. When I got my first job out of college, I got the interview via a career fair but accidentally uploaded a 2-year-old resume. It was a hiring event interview that I had 2 sit-downs and found out in the first that they had the wrong one. I had a few extra copies on me just in case, so I handed the first interviewer a fresh one and we moved on. When I walked into the second, I told the interviewer what happened, handed him my updated resume and moved on. I found out a few years later that the second interviewer had accused the career fair person of not knowing what we were looking for. I got that job. When I got my next job, the first few interviews were Zoom calls, and after I set a phone call with my hiring manager, he was about 20 minutes late before I realized I had my phone number wrong on my resume. I got that job. When I got my third and current job, I talked to the hiring manager while I was on vacation and only had my previous wrong phone number, resume available to send. I corrected it when I got home a week later. I got that job. I was a career fair interviewer at that first job, and at the end of the fair, we'd have so many good candidates that we would scour their resumes for typos to weed out the last few. I have no idea how I've been so lucky to get any of these jobs, but I'm extremely grateful that everyone has been gracious when I pointed out my own mistakes. I think most people's luck would be more like the person whose responses are going to a random guy's email, not I made several mistakes on several resumes and it all worked out for me person. That makes me fairly jealous. Story 22. I thought baby fever was an infection. Also, baby fever is definitely a real thing. I had a friend help me babysit my toddler sister. She's very child-free / feminist / too many people on the earth type. Anyway, my sister, who is normally a little psychopath, wasn't feeling good and just wanted to be held. She crawled into my friend's lap and just rested against her chest. It was so cute. After that, she was like, I'm still not sure if I want a baby, but I know I want that baby. She actually started becoming my sister's regular babysitter, would offer to watch her for free, sometimes all weekend. I have baby fever, but in an auntie way. I love them, would clear an evening to spend with my nieces or nephews. I'm great with babies, helped my sisters during PP, didn't mind it at all. Even the zombie weeks when I was also working during the day, I didn't even feel frustrated when they act up. I'm the designated sitter as of now, and I look forward to it each time. I'm hoping one of my sisters has another soon. Yet, I like to give them back. Never felt the urge for my own. I'm 31. Kinda worries me sometimes because everyone I know around my age got that fever even when they swore they didn't want kids. When I was a kid, I thought spring fever was an actual illness until I had a fever one day and told my mom, I think I have spring fever. She laughed really loud because she thought I was making a joke. Baby fever is real. It just doesn't have anything to do with a thermometer. There's an actual hormonal shift. Spring fever is when people get all excited that winter is ending. This is most prevalent among kids in school. Also not thermometer related, but very real. Thanks for watching until the end. If you have a similar story that you would like to share, please leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like and subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.